Yeah, and with these races coming up, I think it's time we, before anything else, go past what all of the runners have had to go through in this tournament. And I think it might be a good idea to quickly introduce the runners to give you guys a little bit of an idea of who will be racing today. Um, and with that, I wanted to first give an idea of what this tournament has been so far. So this tournament started out uh, as a as a three-man bracket at first. Two of the best two runners of each bracket going on to a double elimination setup. Today we will be seeing the end of this double elimination. We'll start off in a little bit with the semifinals for the losers bracket. So those that have already lost one of their matches in the DE brackets, after which we'll go through semifinals of the winners bracket, the ones that haven't yet to lose a match, at least in the double elimination. After which we'll get a match between the loser of the winners semifinals and the winner of the losers semifinals, and the winner of that will also be continuing to the actual finals of this tournament. And I think with that, let me introduce you to a couple of the runners. Today we'll be seeing, first off, we'll be seeing Pikminsteve and DLDarklink for losers semifinals, and then later on we'll see Lenofis and myself, Cruel, in the winners semifinalist. So let me go past those runners quickly, starting off with Pikminsteve. Now, Pikminsteve had quite the match. He's a very new runner to this tournament, and with that, he actually showed quite some skill throughout throughout the tournament. He's had one loss in the brackets against Fatman, but managed to actually win three of the matches, and with a better average time than Fatman, ended up winning the Dark Wizard bracket in first place with the slowest going with the slowest time into the double elimination bracket, at least for the winners, but then still pulling through in the double elimination all the way to the quarterfinals in winners. He had quite some matches going for him. Having been up against Chrono Kirby, who was the former world record holder of this game. I think Chrono Kirby ended up forfeiting because of a death, and because of that, Pikminsteve continuing to best of 8, where he was up against Ausabe, also somebody that is definitely very skilled in this match. Again, pretty similar to the first match. If I recall correctly, though he got a really good time of a 137, Ausabe ended up forfeiting that match, also because of a death and not being able to pull back on it. He ended up in quarterfinals where he had to face Lenofis, and that match, even though he got a 136, which is still a very good time, Lenofis managed to beat him with a 130, getting him into the losers bracket. He did pull back a little bit going into the semifinals after his match against Shinbreaker, where he won with a 137. And I think with that, we'll definitely be seeing a lot of Pigman today. He's definitely shown what he's capable of. I think his PB is now at a 132. Very skilled runner, very good for this race. Let's see what he's going to show off today. And then next up we have Darklink.
And his opponent is Darklink, and Darklink started out very clutch in the double elimination portion of the bracket. His first race was up against Porsyth, and continuing the trend, Darklink had the one of the closest races ever. It was a 42-second difference between Porsyth, narrowly edging that one out, before finally falling to Shinbreaker 7 in the next round, where he would jump to the losers bracket. And after the first match of the losers bracket, where'd he go here? Where'd he go? I'm losing myself here. My apologies. We're not all quite awake yet, but we got enough caffeine. We got enough caffeine in our system now. But he has advanced through, and to face Pikminsteve, who have both been very, very performing very well in this tournament.
Yeah, one interesting thing to note is that all four of the finalists will all manage to get to winners bracket quarterfinals. Like you can see, all four of them.
Hmm.
So they've all played each other before. So it's going to be interesting to see rematches happen. Which is definitely, I think no matter what, we're going to see a rematch between some of the finalists.
Yeah, and Darklink, I remember his quarterfinal match well. He actually was tied with me at almost the end of the game. 10 minutes before the end, he pulled back from a death that he had early on and managed to pull all the way back near the end of the match. And I think if it wasn't for that death, he might be standing in winner's bracket right now. That was quite the match Darklink has shown off, and I'm very curious to see how he will be doing against Pikminsteve. And that leaves us the two winners finalists. And first of all, I want to introduce Lenofis, who's actually co-commentating with me for this first match.
Hello.
Um, Lenofis, being the former world record holder of this game for, I believe, almost 2.5 years that he held the world record,
Too long.
About that time.
quite some of the matches going. He had a pretty rough early game. His brackets were he had some rough matches. He had some deaths here and there, but ending up with only one loss, he still managed to do really well in the brackets. He managed to end up being I don't think he's forfeited any of the matches, and he ended up getting the 5th seed into double elimination. Now, interesting to note about one of his races, he actually shortly beat the console world record in one of his matches until right thereafter it was beaten again by myself. So he's already shown some of the best race times in this entire tournament. I think he has like 4 of the fastest race times in the tournament. So that alone should say a lot about what we can see of Lenofis. Now in the double elimination, he's had some pretty rough matches. He's been up against Rory Extra Life, one of the the world record holder of the PSX version of the game, which he managed to win with a 138. Moving on to the best of 8, where he finished double drop again. Really close race there. Double drop being at the time he was the number 2 runner in the world, I believe. Was a very close race for a long time until Double got really unlucky in Cavern of Ice, which ended up losing the race for Double. Leno continuing to quarterfinals, where he ended up facing Pikminsteve and getting, I believe, like the 3rd best time in this entire tournament with a 1:30.42. So definitely expect to see a lot of Lenofis. It'll be quite the match.
All right. So now on
And
to
then,
you, Cruel. All right. Unless
Yep,
you have.
and then Cruel, who will be my opponent for the winners semifinals, who started out as the overall number 1 seed with the best average times completely in the group stages, moved on and won his matches with sometimes with relative ease. Ended up Final Fantasy Dad ended up forfeiting during the first match. And then in the second match against Sigma, who is now the current console record holder, I believe.
I think
Or
he's
is he- or is
emulator
he-
world record holder.
He's emulator? Okay.
Yeah,
He is
Sigma
currently,
does hold the world record right now.
and he is currently on top. It's a 4-second world record, but it's still a world record. He is top of the bar. Ended up edging out Sigma, where he faced Darklink, who will be the first showcase against Pikmin. He only beat him by just it was a very fast time, just a couple of minutes, and then it'll now be the two of us in the semifinals, where we will square off and RNG will hate us all.
Yeah, one thing to note about this game, specifically at this level of play, is that all these players basically are world record material. It just comes down to luck and counter luck mainly. That's a very big factor in a lot of these races. So it comes down to how these players handle the luck they're given and how they make decisions, how they take risks. So that's what makes this game a good race game and makes it fun to watch. But you can say Cool is pretty much favored to win at this point. He's had a very good run so far. Probably the best over average time if you take all his races together. So before we move on, I just want to give a shout out to all the other runners we haven't mentioned. They've all been fantastic. They all scheduled quickly. They've all been very fun to work with, very fun to have a tournament with. This was pretty tight-knit. This was lots of fun, so I want to just give a round of applause to all the smaller runners out here and all the newcomers as well, who took the courage to learn this game and participate in a tournament.
One thing I really want to add is that before this tournament, our leaderboards looked a lot different. You had me and Chrono Kirby at the very top of the leaderboards, and a lot of the times were over 135, mostly over 140, and then since this tournament has began, I think the top 15 is now under 135, which is absolutely incredible. Like this tournament has done wonders for our leaderboard, and I'm extremely happy to see all these really good times up there now.
Yeah, I mean, now you can see that there's quite a few times on the leaderboard. There wasn't 25 times back when this whole thing started, so it's already pretty nice to see.
Yeah, and with that, I believe we're ready to get this first match on the road. Before we start the actual match, I want to do one last quick shout out to Chrono Kirby, the former world record holder of this game. He's also going to be the one restreaming all of these matches today. He's been amazing in organizing this tournament, and for that I want to give him that special shout out. And with that, I think we're ready to start the match between DLDarklink and Pikminsteve for the for the losers bracket semifinals. One of these guys still have a chance to move on to the finals, so root them on, and let's get this show on the road. Now, while these two gentlemen get their race set up, I want to note that all of these matches will be official SRL matches, and for the final time we will be going by their SRL times. So it's very likely that it's likely that some of the times may differ by a couple seconds from what it'll show on stream, though it should be fairly accurate, and I think there they will go.
So it looks like there's about a 5-second difference here on DLDarklink stream. It's not a huge deal.
Yeah, so for those that don't know Final Fantasy 1, what we'll be seeing a lot throughout this game, Final Fantasy 1 PSP is unique to an equipment glitch that both of these runners will be performing. You'll see they'll equip Knight's armors on everybody. They can dupe that from a hammer. We'll explain the details later on in the tournament. But this first menu is, for a lot of runners, a very good place to show off how good they are at the menuing in this game, because a lot of the time that menuing can lose quite a few seconds, and it can really make the difference between some of these better runners. You'll see both of these going at around 50 seconds. Anywhere between 30 and 50 seconds are usually expected from some of these top runners. It's definitely one of those places where you get to see how skilled these two runners are, and both of them doing this quite well. Now we'll be seeing that glitch again in a little bit when they're getting good equipment as well, like good weapons. They've got their armor set up, but
yeah, they're both having pretty bad luck
weapons
so far. Like I think they're at 5-6 encounters already before entering the shrine, which is already quite bad, but I mean, as long as they're both getting good luck, it's still interesting. Yeah, so this leather cap were transformed into judgment staffs when the glitches were formed. And so judgment staffs are basically like a sort of bonus item. You get it from one of the bonus dungeons, I can't remember which one. But it casts Flare, and it's incredibly overpowered pretty much throughout the game. Like, it's absolutely crazy. Because basically, it'll one-shot any group of enemies. Spare a few near the end of the game, unless you have a very good magic stat. And the only downside is that its animation takes quite a bit of time, so it's not used as much as it could be.
Yeah, so the Judgment Staff, an interesting thing to note about that staff, it's one of the most overpowered staffs in the game. You normally get it in one of the bonus dungeons from Atomos, the Final Fantasy V bonus dungeon. So they're both less than 3 minutes into the game, and they've already got items that you'd expect from somebody that would be near the end of the game. So with that, it doesn't do a huge amount of damage in terms of just attacking, but it'll do enough to get rid of a lot of stuff very quickly, and it's very overpowered even now. Both getting a pretty similar Garland time from the looks of it. I think Pikmin had a little bit worse of a menu, but then still managed to pull back because he got a little bit better encounter rate. Very tight race between the two. It'll be something to see how this will turn out. You'll see a lot of the time that the little differences will come down to getting an encounter more or getting an encounter less.
Even then, it's not decided this early at all.
Nah, there's a lot that can change later on. So even though they're pretty close now, there's just a lot that can happen.
So now they're both on the bridge building sequence. Like, this is one of the few cutscenes the game actually has. Yeah, sorry about the timers. There's just some delay between their streams. There's not much we can do about that. DLDarklink started about 5 seconds behind Pikmin in terms of their streams, but the Israel time should still be accurate, so we'll be using that for official timing purposes if it ever gets too close to differentiate with just our timers. So. Okay, so here we see Pikmin coming up on Chaos, or Pirates. So Pirates are pretty simple. This is the first time he's going to have to use the Judgment Staff. So he's going to have most of his characters set to use Judgment Staff, because the next few bosses will also have Judgment Staff be the prime weapon of choice. So these Pirates are pretty easy to dispatch. Just one Judgment Staff kills all of them. And so now they have access to the ship rather quickly. And so basically, at this point in the game, like, the entire aim of the story is essentially a big fetch quest. You're just getting tons of items from different dungeons and places. This is also, probably where a lot of the RNG is that since this part of the game has the most world map movement, there's definitely...
Yeah, there's a lot of moving around in this next area, and a lot of forests and sea parts where you get encounters, but you don't really have the items to very easily run away yet.
And speaking of bad encounters, Pikminsteve just got Saugans, and Saugans are quite a pain to run from, but thankfully he managed to run away. So now we actually see a pretty pretty big lead by Pikminsteve for this point of the game, like a good, I'd say 30 seconds. But I mean, even over one split, you can lose a minute compared to someone, so nothing's over really up until Chaos Shrine. And even then, you can still have a very bad Chaos fight and die, so...
I will add that like the first two sort of sections of the game, like Garland and Pirates, you can have a lead on somebody and then lose it all on the next little area that's coming up here. A lot of this run is just mitigating the RNG that you get in the first part of the game, really, before you get items that help you run away.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say after Lich, the game is surprisingly consistent. In fact, overall, the game is more consistent than we give it credit. I'd say, like, you can on average finish easily under 37, 36. But, I mean, the thing is that the best times are sub 30, and for that you just need good RNG throughout the run, and that's very difficult to get. But in a race setting, you can definitely easily push the sub 140 without too much trouble if you play well.
And so we'll see Darklink picking up gold needles a bit earlier than Pikmin, I believe. There's several moments in the game where you can pick up the gold needles. They're just a safety item. They won't be used that often just yet, but throughout the run, those things can just be a lifesaver in some of the places. It's just to get rid of petrification in case that happens. It takes about 25 seconds, but you'll see both of the runners probably pick it up just to make sure they'll stay safe later on in the run.
It's really a matter of runner's preference, whether you want to pick them up when Darklink did, or if you want to pick them up when you're leaving this area, because you won't get petrified while you're in this area. So it's just a matter of preference, really.
Yeah, so picking them up very early has the advantage of it's 2 steps less, so you save a little bit of time and movement. But picking them up later allows you to immediately sell the Knight's Armors, which means that the money will be a bit easier and you can get a little bit more in case you need to. So there's a lot of decision making and preference in terms of when you actually want to grab it. Do you want to take those 2 extra steps, or would you rather get a little bit fewer of the gold needles? Usually you don't need that many, but some runners prefer to still pick it up earlier, or prefer to pick it up later just to have that just in case, because it can happen in this run.
Yeah, because gold needles remove petrification, and there's a few enemies, mainly cockatrices, that can cause that. And basically, once a character is petrified, the only way to cure it is golden needles, and he's essentially dead besides that.
So Pikmin had a nasty encounter with scorpions right before the Pisco Demon fight, which cost him some time that Darklink could make up. As you can see, they're both on the same floor now, even though Darklink went to pick up the gold needles. So everything can change just literally in the matter of 1 segment of the game.
Yeah, the gold needles take roughly 25 seconds to grab, so the difference now being less than the 25 seconds, it looks like Darklink is ahead again.
Yeah, I don't know, I think I saw a movement error, or like a hand slip there, because he triggered the Pisco Demons twice. But that may be a deliberate strat to get higher levels, I don't know.
Yeah,
I think that's probably accidental.
So Darklink got blocked by a bet right there.
Yeah, so Pikmin making a small mistake, it shouldn't matter over the long run. Usually the small mistakes like that are not what's decisive in a race like this.
So I think...
But it is a minor little thing.
I think Pikmin may be going for it. So one thing that higher, more advanced runners might try and do is keep the HP on the Warrior and Thief low, because they're going to be grinding later on, and they're going to have the Warrior and Thief dead. To basically get experience for the characters that it really matters for, so not the Warrior and Thief. And so they're already going to be keeping their health a bit low on those characters so that they die more easily later on. So they're going to try and manage their HP to not heal them up to full and keep them around 70-80 HP.
And so Darklink getting a very nasty encounters with crawlers and skeletons. That's gonna lose Darklink a bit of time again. He opts to Judgment Staff them. It loses you about 8 seconds to staff, but especially when several characters are paralyzed, you generally just want to get rid of them. Because if all of them get paralyzed, you can lose minutes.
There's a lot of your time save in a run like this, especially in a race setting, it's really mitigating the bad RNG that you get. So your decision making, whether or not you decide to try and run with the one character you have not paralyzed, or should you kill them and waste the 8 seconds if you don't manage to run away the first turn. It's decisions like that that end up determining a lot of your time, rather than just the RNG itself. So Pikmin's coming up on what is really the first actual boss of the game, Astos. He's more like a mini-boss, but he's not really hard. Realistically, you can kill him in 1 round, 2 if you're unlucky. One of the things to note about Astos is he has a tendency to cast Death on your characters. It's not so bad if he uses Death on the Warrior or the Thief, but if he uses Death on the Black Mage or the White Mage, it's going to cost you a round in the fight.
So Astos, theoretically, he can be killed with just the 2 Judgment Staffs, depending on the rolls that your Black Mage and White Mage gets. Usually that isn't enough, because the White Mage usually doesn't do enough damage for it. But if you get lucky, you could just use the 2 of them. Luckily, the attacks from both Thief and Warrior don't take that long to cast or to use, so it's a lot of extra safety to just use those moves as well.
You can see Darklink got hit by Death on the Thief, but the damage rolls from the Judgment Staff were enough that he still finished the fight in 1 round, so it wasn't a big deal at all. I'd say that they're pretty close, judging by the Astos times and the fact that Pikmin still has yet to go get the gold needles. They're probably pretty close. Now, this next section that they're doing is probably one of the most RNG-heavy sections of the game. Because you have an extremely long walk back to your ship, and then you have to take your ship to go to Matoya's cave and get the Jolt Tonic, and then bring it all the way back to the Elven Castle. And you have to do this with absolutely no equipment that helps you run away. And there's quite a few encounters in this section of the game where you might not run away first turn. Notable examples being Sahagins, Big Eyes, Sharks, and any combination with Wolves. So the encounter luck you get here really determines your pace going forward from here.
Yeah. Even though it's back and forth, I'd say like a strong lead established before Lich, which was about 30 minutes into the game, is still going to stay a strong lead for quite a big part of the game. At least it tends to stay that way, so hopefully we won't see too strong a lead immediately.
There are places later on in the run that will that are equally as RNG heavy, but this has to be, in my opinion anyway, the most RNG heavy section of the game, just because you don't have anything to help you run.
Yeah, because running is essentially based on how fast you are and how fast the enemies are. So at this point we have like no equipment, we're also pretty underleveled. We're gonna stay at a level for most of the game. Thankfully we have equipment to basically compensate for how low of a level we are, but at the moment we have nothing that boosts our agility. We're gonna be getting plenty of items that boost our agility later on, but for these first 20 minutes we have absolutely nothing. So there's definitely a ton of encounters that are very problematic.
So you can see on Darklink's side, he got a double Shark, triple Sahagin Chief encounter, which honestly I've never seen that combination before. That's pretty rare.
I think that may be like an ultra rare encounter, like one of the 64s or the one on 256.
Yeah, but you saw that he tried to run away and failed, and then ended up just killing it, because that's one of the encounters where you're probably not going to run away first turn. If you're doing this not in a race setting, you're going to want to try and run away from them, just because to get a really top time, you have to get lucky and run away from them first try. But in a race, like decision making on whether or not to kill that or try and run away is a big part of what your time is going to end up looking like.
I mean, as a rule of thumb, if you take 2 turns to run away, it would have been faster to kill. That's essentially it. So unless you're pretty sure you can run away first turn, then you should go for the kill. And in races especially, you should go for the kill just to get a better average time, because that's really what you're banking on, is just doing better on average. Because the blowout, get lucky on every fight kind of run is more so in PB attempts where you get to reset a lot until you get a good start, and non-races where you just have one shot to get the best time. But yeah, it looks like we have about a minute difference at this point, which can still be made up, I'd say, even over just Earth Cavern, which is coming up pretty soon, which can also be quite the pain.
There's also the 30 seconds that Pikmin loses from going to get the gold needles after, because Darklink already has them.
Yeah, it's another thing to consider.
So
otherwise, for the most part, they should be taking the same route.
Yeah, depending on how the road to the Mystic Key between Jolt Tonic and Mystic Key will go for Darklink, I'd say it's half a minute to 45 seconds. Might be a bit more if he keeps getting as unlucky as he has been so far.
One thing I don't think that any of us have noted yet is that you'll see both runners intentionally try to avoid forest tiles, and that's because forest tiles have a higher encounter rate than just regular plains tiles in this game. So if at all possible, you'll see them try and they will go out of their way to walk around forest tiles if at all possible. On Pikmin's side, he's doing another equipment glitch menu where he's turning the Mithril Hammer into the Thieves Armlet. Now, the Thieves Armlet has the highest speed of any equipment at this point in the game, and this is going to allow him to run away from encounters much faster than before he had that. That's really the first set of equipment that we get that helps us run away from encounters faster. There's a similar armlet that you can get earlier. It's the silver armlet, I think, but its stats aren't as high as the Thieves Armlet, so it's worth it to wait until you get the Thieves Armlet, because the Thieves Armlet will last you for much longer.
Yeah, I mean, there are a few options to handle this these first 20 minutes. You can also get the Mage Snap, which is like the Judgment Staff except to cast Fire, which has a much shorter animation, only a second or two, and that'll deal with lots of the annoying encounters, but in the end it's still like not worth it on average, so no one really goes for those tiny strats. Thieves Armlet is really like a huge improvement, actually.
I played around with the silver armlet strats for a while. Darklink got the rare drop from Astos, so he accidentally equipped the Ruby Armlet. The Ruby Armlet, if I recall, doesn't really help your speed any.
No, I think it's just defense.
Yeah, the Ruby Armlet it's actually a very interesting piece of armor, since it's the most expensive piece of armor in the game. Even more so than the Knight's armors they got before. It's not particularly useful for any of these runners, because the Knight's armor gives more than enough money than they will need for the remainder of the run. Usually if you get the sword from Astos, it can throw you off a bit, just because you don't expect something like a Ruby Armlet to be on top of the inventory.
I think
so
that's
it's more of an annoyance than anything else.
I think that's the one time in the entire run where getting a rare drop from a boss actually hurts you, because the Ruby Armlet supersedes the Thieves Armlet on top of the menu. When you do the Thieves Armlet menu, you have to make extra cursor movements to move down to the Thieves Armlet to equip it. So getting the rare drop from Astos is actually a hindrance.
Yeah, it'll actually only hinder them in that particular menu. For the later menus, it's not that big a deal, because you don't need to go past it. But
yeah, it's only like 2 seconds.
Yeah, early on it can be a bit annoying.
Yeah, that's what it is. It's annoying more than anything else.
Garland can also drop his longsword, which will create extra menu movement for that Thieves Armlet as well. It's kind of annoying.
What does it make? I don't recall getting.
I forget what it does offhand, but it's just a longsword drop. It's it's semi-rare, and I forget what it does, but it just creates more movement, I think.
I was gonna say I get the longsword drop fairly commonly, and it hasn't affected my menus at all.
Hmm.
I'm not sure what it gives you, but I'm pretty sure the Thieves' Armlet supersedes it.
Ah, that's good. I might just be remembering wrong then.
Yeah, so they're now both blowing up the canal, and that's just... They need to blow up the canal so they can actually continue to further dungeons. It's a very... They've... All of this fetch questing with getting the Mystic Key and everything has all been just so that they could blow up this canal so they can go grab the crystals. And they need to get all 4 of the crystals to enter the final dungeon. So Pigman being out already, he's going to go ahead and make way for the Earth Crystal. It'll still be a little while before he gets there.
So he's gonna make a small detour by Melman to get probably the most important item in the game, which is the Steel Gloves, which transfer into the Barbarian Sword, which is, like, infinitely better than every other weapon in the game, basically. It has twice as much attack as the Excalibur, which is the next best item, and it also gives, like, a 20, plus 20 to your strength.
It's a 15 bonus to strength.
Right.
And it's got about 3 times the attack power of the next best item. So it's incredibly overpowered this early on. Normally you can only get it by killing the strongest version of Chronodia, the super boss of this game. So they've got the kind of weapon that you would normally not even expect to get in a casual playthrough. And with that, they pretty much have their weapon for the remainder of the game.
An interesting thing that you see in that particular menu is a formation change, and that's because only the warrior can equip the Steel Glove. So in order to get a Barbarian Sword on everybody, he has to switch the formation of his characters. Now, depending on the route and strats that you're using, this is the only formation change in the game. There is another formation change later on if you want to add a black garb onto your white mage for extra safety. But other than that, that should be the only formation change you have to do in the run.
Now, as they mentioned previously, this section of the game can be quite evil with RNG. There is going to be every floor in the Earth Cave, and as well as the overall segment for this portion, all have high numbers of monsters that can appear. And there will be several instances where you can just get ambushed, and then you're just eating more time and more time and more time. Sometimes you'll get lucky and you won't get ambushed, or you'll just be able to run away right away. But this section of the game can eat up a lot of time for any runner.
The third floor of the Earth Cave is also the first instance of random encounters that you cannot run away from. There's literally a flag in the encounter that says you cannot flee. On top of that, it's also the first floor where there is a potential run killer on the floor. So it's very common to see runners in a race save when they hit to Cavern of Earth B3. The cockatrices are the encounter that can kill you. If you get ambushed by them and they full party petrify you, it's game over. That's why we picked up the gold needles earlier on in the run. And Pisco Demons are the encounter here that you cannot flee from. You actually have to stop and fight them.
Yeah, so both of the runners opting not to save just yet. It's only a very small chance that cockatrices will actually kill you off, because you pretty much have to get ambushed by a bigger pack of them, and then have all 4 characters get petrified before you get an attack off. Some runners are willing to take the risk. Usually it's advised to save there, but it looks like both of these racers are opting to take the 5-second time save from it.
Darklink caught up just on B3. Darklink had a really, really good B3. By the looks of it.
Yeah, so the difference between the runners now only being a couple of seconds. This is where you'll see how powerful these sections are in terms of RNG, and how much can happen in this.
I think they both had like spectacular exits right there. I mean, those B3s were almost encounterless from what I've seen.
Yeah, as Sigma points out in chat, Fatman lost his race to Sigma because he didn't save on B3 and got Cockatrice ambushed, so it's known to happen. It's not an uncommon event.
And Pikmin having very gold split worthy B3 escape there.
Yeah, that was spectacular. I think we got like 2 encounters on the whole exit. It's quite good compared to Darklink getting a pretty big wolf encounter as well as Pisco Demons. It'd just be a shame to have to forfeit a run. It's not a fun feeling at all. And like a minute time loss from a save can still be made up pretty easily.
I think, and you know, I think we'll probably touch on this a few more times, but we'll be doing some safety saves throughout the course of all of our runs to make sure that nothing catastrophic happens during our runs.
Depending on the runner, how many safety saves they really decide to take, it's up to them. I think Cruel is the one who safety saves the most out of everybody, which is probably why he's done so good in the tournament, to be honest.
Yeah, I've asked him about that, but I mean, he does safety save a lot, but it turns out he doesn't really have to fall back on them too much. But I mean, he still plays safe, so I'd assume the main stuff isn't really the safety saving, less so not playing risky on encounters and stuff like that. Because that can really get you if you play too risky on encounters, try to run away from stuff you shouldn't be running away from. You can easily die if you play too risky.
But very, very common safety save points are Cavern of Earth B3, Cavern of Earth B5 right before Lich because he has the potential to kill you. Cavern of Ice is probably the biggest run killer in the game from personal experience. And really there's not too much else other than the final dungeon where you can really die. There's places you can lose lots of time, but nowhere else that you can really
there's
die.
still Citadel is capable of trolling as well. There's a couple things that can kill you there.
It's possible to die in Citadel. I've never seen it happen though, other than in like,
I've had it happen.
bingos
I've had
and
it
stuff.
happen once, so it has happened before. Though it's very rare to actually die in Citadel. Depending on the runner, some may actually save there, some may not. It really depends.
You're probably more likely to die in the NES version of the Citadel than you are in any other ports. But yeah, you can still die because you can still get mind flayers. They can still one-shot you potentially because you don't have any kind of protection. Let me see here. You could get magic trolled by the Horn Devils and the Rakshasas, I believe they're called. The green ones, the man cats.
Yeah, I guess it would be possible. I mean, that's a bit of a far stretch right there, but I could see it happening.
Yeah, and then there's most notably probably the Medusas, who can still petrify you at that point in the game. Which is... and then outside of it, on the way to Citadel, there's the Sandworms, which have Earthquake, which I believe only twice that somebody's actually died to Earthquake there, but that too can happen. Since Citadel is pretty close after Cavern of Ice, usually that's the save you can fall back on and you won't lose that much. I think it's like 4 minutes depending on where you exactly die.
Yeah, so there's a bit of back and forth in that section there, but it looks like Pikminsteve is coming up Underneath Cavern, about a minute ahead or so. And he's actually on a pretty good pace. Like, I think we're gonna see something around like a 33 Lich or so. Depends on how the rest of the cavern goes.
Yeah, the RNG for Pikmin has definitely been very decent at this point. If he can keep this up, he might just be able to show quite a time.
A good judge of pace is really your time once you kill Lich. I'd say a good time once you kill Lich is like 32, 30, and below. Anything more is probably over a 1 hour 30 pace. But anything under that, you're on pace for a sub 130 time.
Yeah, I'd say 1 hour after Lich until the end of the game is reasonable. I'd say, let me see, something along anything under 58 is definitely like very good luck. But that's what you need for like world record or something like that. I think.
I will note that the world record has like a 33 something Lich, and Like the rest of the game can still catch you up if you have a bad Lich time, but it's not very common.
Yeah, for comparison, like Sigma's world record has a 33, whilst my PB, which is only 4 seconds behind him, has a 31:30. So, like my PB has big time losses after Lich. That's the thing. But I'd say like 56, 55 minutes is very good after Lich. But 1 hour is definitely average. It's pretty easy to make.
Yeah, so generally there's about 2 points in the game where you'll notice about how good the pace is. That's generally the Lich time, which is about half an hour into the game, and then later on the Rosetta Stone time, which we generally aim if you want to get the world record for about a 1 hour Rosetta Stone or under. So that's the 2 points in the game where you can definitely see how good a pace is, just depending on the moment that the runner gets to that specific point.
Yeah, so DLDarklink has caught up a bit on this segment, it seems. He's only like 1-4 behind. Sally's getting some pretty bad luck with these encounters. The one thing to remember with this game is that it's less about quantity and more so about quality with encounters. Like, you can get a billion encounters that are all quick runaways, and it's not a big deal. But if you keep getting encounter after encounter that are unrunnable, like DLDarklink is getting right now, you lose a ton of time.
Yeah, so generally, over the course of a run, on average, you get about 180 to 200 encounters. Obviously, you want to be on the lower end of that for really good times, but it also very much depends on what those encounters are like. If there's a lot of unrunnables, like the Pisco Demons, and later on, for example, in Sunken Shrine, where you can get ghosts and Sahagin, Prince and Chief, and all kinds of stuff like that, that can be a very influential piece of the run.
Yeah. And
Pikmin getting a 33-30-ish Lich, being on a really decent pace actually. I think he's got his PB is like a 132, and he might actually be able to beat that with this kind of Lich time.
He may even be straight up on PB pace. I don't know how his PB splits exactly, but it seems reasonable enough. Like, at this point, the PB, he'd not have to get about a 59 for the rest of the game, which is definitely pretty easy to get if he gets decent luck.
I think he's had 2 good stretches of RNG, so he's probably about on pace.
So here we see DLDarklink coming up. So Lich can use Blizzara, and that will pretty much like one-shot your party, especially if you don't heal. I'd say if you're gonna go for the safety save, you shouldn't really heal, because if you heal, you have a chance of surviving it, and so you should heal if you want to not safety save. It's either one or the other. If you do both, it's kind of redundant, I'd say. So DLDarklink is pretty much a minute behind at this point, which is not a huge lead at all. It can definitely be made up. Even on, I'd say on the Canoe segment alone, it's possible for Pikminsteve to get enough bad luck to lose a minute. And there's also the Ice Cavern, which is gonna be quite the big surprise, quite the big mystery in terms of RNG. A lot of stuff can happen, a lot of stuff can go wrong. You can die, which is why I assume both runners are gonna be safety saving, of course.
In my in my tournament race with Lenefits, I was plus 4.5 minutes coming out of Lich, and then I was minus 4.5 minutes coming out of Lich, so I was ahead, and then Cavern of Ice just destroyed me, and I was behind by 4.5 minutes coming out of Cavern of Ice, so anything can really happen.
Yeah, so Pikminsteve, he's about 40 seconds behind his PB at Lich, but that's definitely a time he can still make up in the later parts of the game.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'd say with 33-30, he could theoretically world record if the rest of the game goes very well. So Huey's gonna sell his Knight's Armors if he hasn't already. And then buy some Ethers to be able to restore his MP. And then now we're gonna get the next upgrade to our armor. Alright, he's gonna go for it, of course. Which is gonna be the Mythorax, which can transform into a Black Garb, which gives us double the agility. So he's going to be placing that on 2 to 3 characters, depending on personal preference. 3 characters is a bit safer, but...
Yeah, so an interesting thing to note about the Black Garbs is it adds 15 agility per character, which allows you to run a lot quicker. But in order to get it on 3 characters, you need to do 2 extra formation changes over the course of the run. You cannot equip it by default on the warrior. It looks like Pikmin is going for 3 characters. It's a little bit safer. It's slightly slower on average.
I mean,
but
it's
over
hard
the course
to
of the run, it can.
it's hard to test these things.
Yeah, it can really save your life at some places, though it usually doesn't. So it really comes down to runner preference.
One
whether or
thing
not
to
you
note
will do that.
about the Black
Yeah.
Arm is I think this is the strat Asabe does, is he keeps the Black Arm on for the final fight with Chaos to just have a little bit of extra defense, so that White Mage won't die if you get a very bad pattern with Chaos. That's a thing he does, I think.
He leaves the Black Garb on helmet and accessory.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, I put survival vests on and then switch to the lordly robes after.
Yeah, so there's a lot of little strategies that you can do in that area just to mitigate the RNG a little bit. You'll see Pigman, he got it on 3 characters, whereas Darklink only got it on 2 characters. And it really comes down to preferences, how exactly you take that.
The thing to note with the Black Garbs, since I think everyone used to do 3 until I started doing 2, and then it's kind of been split on which one was better. But I try and warn people before they decide what they're going to do, what the risks and rewards are. If you do 3, you have a better chance of fleeing from enemies, obviously. But the other thing to note is that there's an encounter that we grind on in Cavern of Ice called Evil Eye. And there is the potential, if you do not put the Black Garb on the White Mage, Evil Eye has the potential to outspeed her. So if you wait for him to use Thundara to kill off your warrior and your thief, which we normally do, and Thundara happens to kill your Black Mage, for if whatever reason your Black Mage doesn't have enough HP to survive it, there is a very good potential that Evil Eye can outspeed your White Mage and you can die. So there's risks to not putting the Black Garbs on, and that's probably the biggest risk you end up taking.
So yeah, Pikmin is now in Cavern of Ice, and I think it's a good moment to kind of explain how many things can go wrong in that area. So Cavern of Ice has got a couple things that can just straight out kill you. There's white dragons, which if they ice storm you, you're just gonna die there. There's not much you can do, especially Double Drop has a lot of experience with those white dragons. Yeah, so there's also dark wizards, and dark wizards have Firaga, which is also a very powerful spell at this point, which can very easily kill you as well. Then there is Cockatrices, which we mentioned earlier, can petrify the entire party, as well as Mind Flyers, who can paralyze all of your characters and have the capability of killing on hit. So that's something that can kill you. There's Pisco Demons, which can just waste a lot of time if you get a lot of them because they're unrunnable. And there is the Spectre, White Ghast, Ghoul kind of stuff, which can potentially paralyze you and lose you a lot of time. So there is a lot of stuff that can go wrong in here.
Yeah, this dungeon is one of the worst, by far.
Yeah, and then there's a very rare encounter as well, the Ice Gigas, which you'll see on which Darklink just encountered. It's a very rare encounter. I believe it is unrunnable, though I'm not completely sure on
unrunnable,
it.
yep. It is unrunnable, yep. It is the next encounter you cannot run from.
It's also worth noting that it's what causes the Ice Gigas Winter Wolf encounter to become unrunnable, because Winter Wolves on their own are runnable, and Ice Gigas on their own are not. But together, the encounter also becomes unrunnable.
And they don't even appear
the
per...
Water Elemental and Naga thing.
I don't believe they appear apart, that's the thing as well.
They do.
Oh.
You can get simple Ice Gigas. Darklink just got one here in Cavern. You can find them on the world map, just Ice Gigas.
Yeah, there's two places where you can encounter them solo, either in Cavern of Ice or just outside of Onrak. In both cases, they're pretty annoying to encounter, though they are in both cases pretty rare encounters as well.
So this dungeon has been quite a bit of a lead breaker for Pikmin right here. It hasn't been treating any of the racers well so far, but Pikmin has definitely been losing quite a bit of time to it.
Yeah, Pikmin in general, he's had some pretty rough encounters to run from, and he's seen quite a few unrunnables as well. So this race is definitely getting close again between the two. And
so first Tomb
depending
Thundara.
on how late game goes, this is still anyone's game.
So first Tomb Thundara, that's ideal. Basically, you want to keep your Warrior and Thief at low health there so they die to one Thundara. And the one disadvantage of that is that he doesn't always use Thundara. So you need to get somewhat lucky and have him cast it quickly, but Pikmin got good luck there. So
Yeah,
he's saving...
Darklink very narrowly escaping a Paralock there. It's, he too has not had the greatest luck in this Cavern of Ice. He's still got some ways to go before he'll actually be at the Evil Eye.
Yeah, so here our goal is going to be to get to level 18, but since we're going to have some forced and spike tiles later on, we're not exactly going to get to 18 per se.
Normally you'd have to get 19.
Yeah, that's right.
But because of the way the encounters work between where we actually need level 19 and the grinding here, we usually go to either level 18 or level 18 plus 1. Generally for marathon strats it's 18 plus 1, so we have a little bit more wiggle room.
The reason we're grinding here, it's not because we need levels. We don't need the levels to actually beat the game. What we need is spells. And so we need Hilara on the White Mage, and we need Teleport on the Black Mage. The Teleport saves minutes, not having to walk out of dungeons later on, and Hilara is necessary for the final boss. Now, the way spells work in this game is you cannot learn a spell unless you are a specific class and or a specific level, and in this case both spells require level 19. So we grind here to level 18, and then we use the encounters that are forced by the spike tiles in Citadel to push us over to level 19, so we can get the spells after that.
Yeah, so an interesting thing to note about those spells, about half a year ago, these spells weren't actually obtained at all. And what we used to do is we used to skip Citadel altogether, so we wouldn't be able to get the spell, but it would save out on a dungeon. Nowadays, when all bosses was routed, we started looking into potentially doing Citadel, and I think it saves about a minute on average, and it adds a whole lot of safeties in the long run as well.
Doing Citadel?
Yeah.
Doing Citadel saves like 5 minutes.
Yeah, it saves like 5 minutes, but you lose out on a lot of that on actually doing Citadel.
No, it saves 5 minutes, the route. The route itself saves 5 minutes in total.
Because before when we used to skip class change, what you had to do was you grinded to level 33, and that takes a very long time. And the reason for that is instead of getting Hilara, we would get Hilaga.
And the grinding turned into a coffee break of sorts.
Yeah, so basically the main change was replacing grinding with a dungeon that allows you to get more for your money, because essentially, instead of doing grinding for quite a while just to get Hilaga, we instead come out of the grind, per se, which is essentially just a small grind plus Citadel, with access to basically Hilara, which is as good as Hilaga with the equipment we get from Citadel, and with Teleport. And so Teleport is really what makes the right route shine, because otherwise it would be as fast if we didn't have access to Teleport, but having access to Teleport is what makes it much faster. So theoretically, you could skip Citadel entirely if you farmed emergency exits, but that's more of a segmented or attach kind of route, because you need very good luck at chaos with that kind of route as well. So I think the gap is still at about a minute.
And both runners got most of the mean encounters in the Ice Cave. I believe they actually got all of the mean encounters except for White Dragons. Alright, so we see that Pikminsteve has entered the Citadel of Trials. One nosy thing to mention with the Citadel in this version of the game. If anybody's played the original NES version of the game, and you have delved into the actual game mechanics, so to speak, you may have noticed that you need the crown from the Marsh Cave to proceed into the Citadel. But it's also silly because there's no way to not have the crown. So in this version of the game, actually in all updated ports, they just change it so you have to talk to the old man at the front door to start the trial, so to speak.
Oh, really? I didn't know that was a requirement in that.
Yep. Yeah, if you try to enter that first chair and not talk to the old man guarding it, you won't proceed.
So, Pikmin ran into Minotaur zombies, which is more common in the later parts of the game as than another unrunnable encounter. You're going to be seeing them somewhat commonly for the rest of the run. So I had a friend who was just playing through Final Fantasy 1 PSP casually because he intends on speedrunning it later for a marathon. And his first comment when he got to the Citadel of Trials was, "This is Sabrina's gym from Pokemon with all the teleporters."
Yeah, Citadel of Trials can be pretty confusing for newer runners. There are a couple ways that you can recognize which teleporter it is. One thing to note how to go is that I believe it's always the bottom teleporter between the options that you get. With that, it's pretty easy to get down.
So it looks like we have a 50 flat Citadel time, or 50-30, which is pretty good actually.
Potential world record pace. It's not that far off.
Yeah, I mean, if the rest of the run follows, that's the thing. It's like, for world record, you don't just need not bad luck, you need actively good luck. So it's definitely hard.
This is definitely a sub 130 pace.
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely pretty good. I mean, for both runners too, because DLDarklink may be about a minute behind, but I mean, that's still pretty good to be keeping up with Pikmin, with the RNG he's getting right now.
One thing that we didn't mention is that you saw them pick up two chests. One is the healing staff and one is the gauntlets. Depending on the runner, the gauntlets have multiple uses. Basically, we're picking them up for equipment glitch, but you can use them as an item to cast Thundara, I think it is, which is a faster animation time than the Judgment Staff, but you need better equipment for it to be able to one-shot enemies, and that's something that you'll probably see Lenifus doing in his races, is he uses the gauntlets in Sunken Shrine.
Most definitely.
The healing staff is also an item that is needed for the equipment glitch later on. There's one really, really big menu coming up in Sunken where we take all these items and use them for the equipment glitch.
Yeah, so an interesting thing to note, especially about the Gauntlet, is in the all bosses route of this game, the Gauntlet actually serves a very important purpose in some of the dungeons. Because of the higher level you have in that run, you actually are able to one-shot a lot of different things throughout the game, and it saves minutes to use the Gauntlet over the Judgment Staff.
I learned that the hard way. I just learned all bosses, as it wasn't explicitly stated in the notes, but I just assumed that I could use them. But I also discovered that you needed the golden staff in order for the damage output to be high enough to one-shot certain things.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of encounter manipulation, from what I've gathered, it's something that's, I'd say, semi-predictable. Like, it's not entirely frame-based, but it's tied down to about... It depends, actually. It's based on sort of windows. It's hard to explain, but basically, like, you'll stay on the sort of same set seed, but your seed will change every couple of frames, but it's not always just like every other frame that it changes. Sometimes you can actually manipulate it realistically, but sometimes it's like one extra frame will get you to a different window, so it's definitely very difficult to manipulate artillery. I wouldn't exclude it from ever being possible for a short part of the beginning of the game maybe, but it would require a lot of work.
Yeah, at this point we've not really had any... Yeah, I think at this point we've not really have any viable ways of properly manipulating the RNG. So at this point there is no form of step route or seed manipulation or anything.
I mean, the only thing that does exist is there is NPC manipulation at the beginning of the game. Like, we know what in-game seconds when leaving the first shop of the game will give you an NPC blocking your path. So we know it can be manipulated, but even then it comes down to luck, basically. Like, we don't aim to manipulate it.
I think that theoretically we could manipulate up to Garland at least, but
If you delay
the
doing the
difficult thing
menu,
about
yeah.
that is, yeah, the difficult thing with that is that because it's frame based, it requires your menus to be the same every time.
I mean,
And
what you do is
a lot of runners have trouble with the menus in this game just because of how they work. The menuing in this game is rather clunky at best. So it's hard for a lot of people to get down just because of how, like, you have to go slower than is theoretically possible for you to do all the inputs in the menu.
Yeah, the thing with the menus is that they're clunky to begin with, and for the equipment list, you sort of have to pace yourself. Like, if you try, because the way it works is that you have to press a shoulder button and the confirm button within a couple of frames of each other. Like, it's not exactly frame perfect, but it's still, like, I think 3 frames or something like that. So you have to pace yourself. Like, if you try to go immediately into the equipment glitch, you're gonna have some problems. And Pikminsteve in a bit of a dangerous spot here with these hellhounds. Hopefully you can run away, making the good choice to attack. That's why you definitely want to heal here. So one thing about this dungeon we haven't explained yet is that all the encounters, tiles in the game really that will damage you when you walk on them also don't give you encounters. So you want to sort of maximize the tiles you walk on that give you damage. The only downside to that is that, of course, they damage you. So you want to make sure that it's sort of a risk, because you want to, on one part, not heal just to save time and menuing, but on the other part, you're at very, very low HP, and there are enemies that will ambush you and attack first, like we saw there with the Hellhounds. So had he gone the encounter a bit further, and had he not healed, he would have died. And I don't think, I haven't really seen safety saves in Mount Gulg as a too common of an occurrence, so...
Now, generally for Mount Gulg, it's like the rule of the thumb is just make sure your health stays low, and then there isn't really much of a threat. But there are some places and some encounters that are really scary if you get them at the wrong moment. Pikmin getting the very rare Hellhound Ogre Mage, one of the rare unrunnables in Mount Gulg. Mount Gulg doesn't have a lot of unrunnables, but Hellhound Ogre Mage is one of them.
The thing with Mount Gulg is because all the lava tiles that you step on, you get no encounters on them. And because there is so much lava tiles, you rarely, if ever, see encounters in Mount Gulg. I'd say 0 is more common, like a 0 encounter in Mount Gulg is more common than you'd think. And I'd say 1 to 2 is average. Any more than that is incredibly unlucky.
There are actually 3 unrunnables in Mount Gulg. Red Dragon is one of them. That's ultra rare and spike tile. The Fire Elemental is also spike tile, ultra rare, and then the aforementioned Ogre Mage, Hellhound.
And the Hellhound Ogre Mage, I think, is only unrunnable together. If there's another kind of ogre with them, you can run.
Yep. And I believe it was either Darklink or Pikminsteve that actually saw that encounter and did get away.
It was Darklink.
It was Darklink, okay.
And that's an encounter, like, you have to see them together, and it's only that specific encounter. So if you get Ogre Mages by themselves, you can run away. If you get Hellhounds by themselves, you can run away. And if you get Ogre Mages and Hellhounds, but with another Ogre alongside it, you can also run away. But just Ogre Mage and Hellhound, you cannot run. So there's a lot of, like, really weird quirks about encounters like that in this game.
The Sunken Shrine that is coming up also has 3 encounters which are unrunnable, and it is not uncommon that you'll see all 3 of them in a run.
It's very common, actually.
Yeah, and with that, Sunken Shrine is definitely one of those dungeons that can still determine a big part of this run, even this far in. If you get it, generally the differences you'll see in Sunken aren't that big, but over the course of the run, if you get a lot of unrunnables or you get very few, that can still make up minutes.
So with that, Darklink has also taken down Merilith. Merilith, like Lich, has the potential to cast a spell that can kill you, but it can only really kill you at this point in the game if you haven't healed. Merilith casts Firaga, I believe it is, which is another AoE spell, but you should be able to tank it at full health.
Yeah, so at this point, from full health, there isn't a lot of stuff that can kill you anymore. There's still a few encounters that are a little scary, but there aren't a lot of things that are really a threat anymore. And especially, very soon we'll be picking up the ribbon, and after that, there is hardly anything that can actually still kill you.
We still fear the white dragons, though.
Yeah, the white dragons are still scary. There's still the very hype, but potentially dangerous Warmech encounter, which is you hardly ever see it. I do hope we will be seeing one of them in one of the final matches today. It's a 1 in 64, where if it ambushes you, it can still be scary as well.
I mean, in glitchless it would be potentially dangerous, but I mean here we're so overpowered. I think we 1 or 2 shot it. I don't remember. I've done it before in a run.
You need 2 to 3 hits to kill it, and it's got a pretty powerful AoE attack. I've died to it once in the Labyrinth of Time, when I was at the level you'd be on a regular any % run.
I got a Warmech recently in not in all bosses, in any % and I one-shot it, but I think I crit.
Yeah, it is possible to one-shot it, but an interesting thing with those Warmechs, if one of the runners would happen to get it, they will probably end up trying to kill it, because it also gives more experience than any other encounter in the game. It gives 32,000 experience, so it's a huge deal if you get it, because it helps on with the safety later on a bit, because you get some extra health.
Like, I'm trying to remember the name of it, Chrono can probably help me out, the Mew in Chrono Trigger, I believe it is generally considered a sign of good luck if you encounter it.
Yeah.
Except this is a 1 in 64 encounter rather than a 1 in 6, but because Warmech isn't really a threat to us, we view encountering it as like an omen of good luck. It's probably the only rare encounter in the game, or one of the only rare encounters in the game that we actually want to see. With the exception of the 1 in 64 Ochre Jellies, which Cruel really enjoys to see.
Yeah, so there's a couple of...
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, there's a couple of very rare encounters throughout the game. The Ochre Jelly in Cavern of Earth is a 1 in 64 on 2 of the 3 floors where you can encounter it, and it's a 3 in 64 on the other one. The white dragons we saw earlier, we can see in Cavern of Ice. We didn't actually get to see them this run, but we'll probably see them at some point. The Warmech is one of them, and then there's a couple of other 1 in 64s that generally are either very scary or an omen of good luck. Some of them are actually pretty rough to get, or to look for in something like a full bestiary run. Tyrannosaurus being another example, which is a unique 1 in 64. So there's a couple of encounters like that, and it'll be interesting to see if we get to see some of those in these runs.
So Pikmin is now picking up the Rosetta Stone, and this is going to be the first point in the run where you get to see the utilization of Teleport. What Teleport does is it warps you back 1 floor, so using this here, he's going to use it twice to get him back to 3F, and then he's going to continue on to Kraken. This probably saves about anywhere between 1.5 minutes to 2 minutes, depending on encounter luck, because the 4th floor of the Sunken Shrine is very, very common for unrunnable encounters. And on the subject of the full bestiary run, I think only Cruel has ever done it.
Yeah, I'm the only one to have completed runs, and my full bestiary run actually got very lucky with most of the 1 in 64s. Some of the 1 in 64s, like for example Warmech, can be encountered elsewhere. There's, I believe, like 3 or 4 1 in 64s you actually have to grind out on their specific spot.
it's a missed category on the leaderboards, I think, just because it's like such an arbitrary run nobody ever does, and it's so long.
I mean, if more than one person would do it, it would be bumped up to a standard category.
I mean, generally, like the full bestiary was just like an idea that Cruel had as a category, but the actual long category in this game is all bosses.
Yeah, so the full bestiary run, an interesting thing about that is actually it wasn't just created as the full bestiary, but back in the day when we started with all bosses, we figured because you'd have to do Labyrinth of Time 8 times, we'd make a much easier run, which ended up being all bosses. So because of all bosses was made instead of full bestiary at the time, and eventually I decided to just give it a go. It's quite the run. It's a very long run, but it can be a pretty exciting run as well to do.
Yeah, the thing with bestiary is that Chronodia has a total of 8 forms. You'd have to go through Labyrinth of Time 8 times to get all of her entries. That's why all bosses is worded in a very specific way to avoid having to do that.
So Pikmin is about to come up on Kraken at a really good time. His second half of Sunken Shrine was just amazing.
Yeah,
He had a 102 Rosetta, and then this could potentially be a sub 5 Kraken. So he had really good luck in Sunken.
Pikmin still needs to do some of the menuing, so it's not going to be a 105 Kraken.
Oh, I thought he did that.
No, he has picked up a bit of a lead again on DLDarklink. I believe there was about a 2 to 2.5 minute gap at the Rosetta Stone, and with that kind of Sunken Shrine, it's not unlikely that he'll be able to keep that lead. DLDarklink is definitely going to need some really good luck if he wants to catch up at this point. It's not impossible, because there are still some rough areas left, but at this point, it definitely looks like it's in favor of Pikminsteve.
So the thing with that menu, and you're going to see DLDarklink doing it very shortly as well, is that we upgrade the black garbs into the survival vest, and that's probably the best item in the game as far as your agility is concerned. So it lets us run away from the late encounters in the game.
Oh yeah.
Very late.
Oh yeah, Pikmin is about 2.5 minutes ahead of his PB at the moment, so this should be a sub 30 if the rest of the run follows through. And also one thing to note, I think it doesn't really come down to personal choice. You definitely want to do the menu immediately, just so you can have Survivor Vest to run away from the rest of the encounters. I think it's I don't think Pikmin made a really good choice doing it later before Kraken, because there's definitely a few encounters you could get before Kraken that would be very helpful to actually have the survival vests.
Well, survival vests actually have a lot of perks to it. It has the highest agility boost of any equipment in the game. It's supposed to be post-Labyrinth content. You're supposed to be able to get it as a drop from Chronodia. But obviously, we're just destroying the game logic here, so... But on top of giving the best agility boost, it also raises stamina, which helps your HP growth on leveling. It has poison elemental resistance, which in itself isn't the best, but if you don't have a ribbon, that's actually pretty handy against a certain encounter in the final dungeon.
Yeah, and another thing to note, like the Barbarian Sword we mentioned earlier, you get it from the strongest version of Chronodia. Well, the Survival Vest is what you get from the second strongest version of Chronodia. So it's both of those items are stuff you get from really powerful versions of the super boss of this game. It actually counts for the Lordly Robes as well. I'm not sure which version of Chronodia drops that, but all of those things are dropped by really powerful versions of the final super boss of the game. So there's definitely a lot of really overpowered equipment that we'll be carrying at this point.
So DLDarklink side, you saw a single water elemental, so you saw that he chose to attack. At this point in the game, unrunnables either come in large packs or in very small packs, and deciding whether or not to attack or use an AoE attack to kill them is a big, important part of the decision making.
One thing I'd like to mention, I don't think this was mentioned yet, The agility boosting equipment that we've been using since Elf Castle, the Thief's Armlet, the Black Garb, and the Survival Vest, boosting agility also adds to your attack rating when you physically use physical attacks. So, and that is important for the ninja in particular, because he'll get to, I believe, 6 or 7 hit threshold when you get to Chaos, and then when you use haste, it doubles that, but it just adds more to your physical damage overall. Excellent for the Thief and the Barbarian sword setup.
So on Pikmin's side, this is the second last menu of the game. So what we want to have is a ribbon. Unfortunately, we want it on the shield slot, and you can't natively equip the ribbon on the shield slot. So what we do, and because we only have 1 and we want 4, is this is an interesting menu because we take the ribbon and we convert it to a Gigantax, and then use the Gigantax to convert back to the ribbon on the slots that we want. So it's a case of we glitch the item that we need into another item, in a sense, to duplicate that item on all 4 characters. You don't really, I don't think you see that in any other menu in the game.
No, so an interesting thing about those ribbons is we can equip them on the shield slot, and most of the items when equipped on the shield slot will end up crashing the game. However, because when it turns out, when it tries to pull up the animation of that shield, the shield doesn't exist, and thus the game hard locks. But the ribbon actually does correspond with an existing animation, so because of that, it can be safely equipped on the shield slot without the risk of crashing the game later on. And it's because of that that we opt to give the ribbon in shield. Now, what that ribbon does, it first of all, it boosts our magic defense for all elemental spells by 50%, so we'll be taking a lot less damage from elemental spells like Blizzaga and Thundara. And on top of that, it makes us immune to pretty much all instant death moves and all forms of like paralyzation and poison. And I believe the Mind Flyers are the only thing that can still, or that are still able to paralyze you and one-shot you. But outside of Mind Flyers, there isn't a lot that can do that anymore.
And I think for Mind Flayers, the only reason they can do that is I want to say it's because their instant death move has no element attached to it. I'm not 100% certain on that, though.
Sorry, what was that, Lena?
Oh, the instant death attack attached to Mind Flayers, I think the only reason why that can still one-shot a character is because I want to say it has no element attached to it, but I'm not 100% certain on that.
I remember it just being like, just death. It's not even attached to the spell death, it just has the ability to one-shot you as an inherent property.
Yeah, I think that's it, because the ribbons protect against death, quake, and something else. It's rather than the protect ring only protects against death, whereas the ribbon protects against death, quake, and there's one other.
It protects against status
AoE.
elements in general.
Yeah, there's one other AoE instant death attack that it also protects
Scourge.
against. Scourge. No, there's something else. I remember seeing it. I was looking at that for all bosses very recently. I was looking into it because it's Typhon that can still kill you through the ribbon for whatever reason. I haven't caught all of the walk to and from Lufenia on Pikmin's part. This is another common place to lose a bunch of time. It's not so much about the encounter rate you get here as the quality of encounters that you get. The Minotaur zombies are unrunnable and they're fairly common here, so the more of them that you get, the more time you lose. So getting stuff like Allosaurus and Hillgigas and Winterwolves by themselves is something that you hope to get because you can run away from them. But if you get the Minotaur zombies and you get them frequently, you have to stop and fight them every time. And another thing to note is you see them canoe through the lake because water tiles have a lower encounter rate. So that's like a little bit of a safe zone when you're walking to and from the town to allow you to have a little bit of a break from encounters.
And the encounters you get are all very easy to run from the lake anyways, so...
On Pikmin's side, you see that he's in Mirage Tower. The second floor of Mirage Tower has an incredibly high encounter rate. But if I recall, there's nothing there that's really unrunnable, except maybe if you get like a 1 in 64 dragon encounter.
I think
there
blue
is
dragons
one-
can appear, yeah.
Yeah. First, I'm not sure about the first floor, but from the second floor onward, at very least, blue dragons are a 1 in 64, and they are an unrunnable encounter. We will actually be seeing one of the blue dragons later on a spike tile, but very rarely you get to see one earlier as well.
You notice now that the vampire that we fought in Cavern of Earth is now a regular encounter, and you're encountering them in packs of 2 to 5.
And while the vampire as a boss was not runnable, the random encounters in the Mirage Tower are runnable.
I believe it's actually if you get one of the vampires, or so I've heard at least, you still get an unrunnable encounter, although I've never actually seen it as one, so I can't confirm that.
I've never seen a single vampire either.
Darklink is, yeah. I mean, he was already a bit behind after Lich, and there's been a bit of back and forth, but I mean, the lead has stayed pretty constant now. It's deepening a bit with the luck he's getting, which is a shame, but that's how it goes.
Yeah, it definitely looks like Pikminsteve has this race. There is still a couple things that can happen. There's a couple places where Pikmin can definitely lose a lot of time. Chaos' Shrine not being a bad example of that, but if Pikmin can keep this up, he's definitely got this race.
Well, that's really the only place left to lose time is in
Yeah.
Chaos' Shrine.
Yeah, Chaos'
Generally,
Shrine.
you don't have a lot of time in Flying Fortress. It's known to have. It's happened to me in my last few runs where I've been on PB pace and I've lost it in Flying Fortress, but it's very rare.
Yeah, Flying Forgers control a bit with the encounter rate, especially with like air elementals, because there are some encounters that are runnable but are very hard to run from. And if you happen to get a lot of them, that can lose you a lot of time.
The Evil Eye that we grinded on is also a regular encounter here, which is unrunnable, and it's not very common to see, but when you do see the Evil Eyes, they tend to appear very commonly. I don't know why that is. It's like you can go through Flying Fortress without ever seeing an Evil Eye encounter, but when you do see an Evil Eye encounter, you generally see 4 or 5 of them. And I don't understand why that works the way it does, but that's just how it seems to work.
Yeah, so you may have noticed Pikminsteve saving at the start of B5 or 5F of Flying Fortress. This is fairly common because of that Warmech encounter, which if you get ambushed by it, it can be a little scary. And since it's only a short walk to Tiamat anyway, it's a pretty common place for runners to save in a race.
The thing is that he didn't heal before Tiamat that I saw, and Tiamat has the chance to kill you at low health if you use the AoE Thunderbolt.
Yeah, so Pikminsteve actually getting that move, still being able to kill Tiamat off with the hit from the White Mage. So Pikminsteve definitely got lucky there at the end that his White Mage did have enough health, but
And it's the same thing as like from Lich earlier that Chrono mentioned. Is either you safety save or you heal, and whichever one you choose is up to you. But I would recommend healing there over safety saving. Not only is it faster for you to heal rather than safety save, but then you don't have to stop and revive your characters afterwards for Chaos' Shrine, which saves you even more time. So I would call that a slight mistake on Pikmin's part. But it's not going to cost him that much since he has such a big lead.
yes, Pikmin, it was a it probably wasn't the best call, but he did get out very well, and it won't actually lose him a lot of time. He will have to heal a little bit more, but we're talking like seconds that he may lose at the end of the day because of it.
He did just make a mistake there by teleporting. That was a mistake because unlike the spell Exit, which just warps you straight out of the dungeon, Teleport moves you down a floor. So now he has to walk back through B5 to get to the warp point behind the crystal.
Yeah, he tried to heal up with Hilara, but his cursor was still on the Black Mage. And since you normally just mash for Hilara because your cursor should already be on it, he probably thought he would be on the White Mage and accidentally teleported because of it.
He actually hasn't healed, which is interesting to note. That hopefully he realizes that mistake in this battle here. Oh no, he did heal.
Yeah, after the first encounter, he realized that and he ended up healing.
I've done that myself, actually, teleporting back to B4. Luckily, that was a run that was not on good pace.
In my very first All Bosses run, I actually used Exit accidentally instead of Hilara. Because in All Bosses you use Exit and I had to do the entire dungeon again. So it's not an uncommon mistake to be one slot off somewhere in the menu and accidentally mash the wrong spell.
So Darklink was able to catch up, I'd probably say about 30 to 45 seconds from the teleport mistake, as well as having to stop and heal on Pikmin's part from losing characters. Now here you see Pikmin opting to kill the White Dragon encounter in Chaos' Shrine. That's not required. The White Dragons are runnable, but they are very, very scary, and I've lost plenty of runs to White Dragon's Ice Storm. If they ambush you and they 4 times Ice Storm and then they outspeed you on the second turn, you can die. And that's happened to me on world record pace on multiple occasions.
Yeah, all the dragons are pretty bad, basically. I think the only dragons that are runnable are red dragons, but even then, it's still quite a gamble to try and run.
Yeah, when you're in the lead in a race, or you're in a race and you want to play it safe, killing the white dragons as opposed to running away is I wouldn't argue against doing that. I think that's a smart strat. It takes a little bit more time to stop and kill them, but it's more safe. So you can either choose to save and then if you die to the white dragons reload, or stop and fight them. And that's really like a split-second decision that each runner has to make on their own. And say the white dragons are probably the scariest random encounter left in the game. So judging on Pikmin's time killing Deatheye, I'd say he's probably on like a high 130, maybe a 131 pace, depending on how Chaos' Shrine goes.
Yeah, I mean, he's about a minute ahead of his PB at this point.
Yeah, Pikmin manages to get a really good Chaos' Shrine from this point onward. He definitely is capable of getting a PB from this point.
It's unfortunate because I think that if he didn't make that mistake with the teleport, he would have the potential to get under 130. He's now fighting a pack of Ice Gigas and Winter Wolf, which the White Dragon is the most deadly encounter here, but this is the most annoying one as far as time waste, because it's very common that one Judgment Staff will not kill both Ice Gigas. So sometimes you have to stop and manually kill spend a second turn killing the Ice Gigas as well.
Yeah, an interesting thing with those Ice Gigas Winter Wolves is usually it's actually the White Mage that can pull off a one-shot, because the White Mage has those lordly robes and thus gets a lot of extra intelligence. I believe the Ice Gigases are somewhat of a range for the Black Mage. They're a very, very rare one to hit to begin with. Both the and Warrior cannot one-shot the entire pack. They do kill the Winter Wolves pretty quickly.
So you see, with these white dragons, this particular time you saw Pikmin decide to use the Judgment Staff instead of attacking them. The general rule of thumb is that three enemies is the base break-even point on attacking versus Judgment Staff, and 4 or more, it's faster to staff. However, you have to factor in menu cursor time from switching between attack and Judgment Staff. So if it's 4 or more, staying on whatever your cursor is currently set to is probably the fastest. And in that case, he already had the Judgment Staff up from when he killed the Ice Gigas Winterwolf, so he chose to keep his cursor there and just Judgment Staff. I think that was the right call on his part.
I mean, 3, it's basically just stay with whatever you're already on. Like, Pikminsteve has been getting pretty bad RNG, so DLDarklink may actually have a possibility to catch up if this continues. Like, Lich's floor, like, this segment is pretty bad. Merilith is okay. I mean, Merilith, the segment on Merilith, which comes right after Lich, it really depends on how the fight itself goes, because depending on how the fight goes, you're going to have to heal, which definitely takes a lot of time. And then Kraken's floor is quite bad. And so here we see a double ambush. The Clay Golems just are a lot easier to run from than Earth Medusas, so I actually like the lead for Pikmin has gone down quite a bit.
Yeah, they're both on the same floor now.
Yeah, this is going to be tight, actually.
Yeah, it's probably going to come down to the Kraken floor and Chaos himself. They're definitely very tight.
This is,
DLDarklink getting a really good Chaos shrine so far, and Pikmin getting really unlucky in a lot of segments.
This doesn't stop, man. Wow. Looks like DLDarklink's about to pass ahead. Ooh, in the ambush. Oh man, this is definitely this is close.
Gonna be a close race again.
This has gone from a big lead on Pikmin's part to anybody's game at this point.
Yeah, I mean,
in a short span of 2 minutes.
Oh man, they're both entering. Wow, this is tight. They're both entering at pretty much the same time. Wow. That is crazy, man.
So which one of the two will Lich flare, is the question?
Oof. Okay, so DLDarklink gets flared.
To flare, and that loses about 10 seconds, plus it'll probably kill off 2 of your characters. Usually from full health, the White Mage and the Warrior will survive a flare. DLDarklink actually getting the flare there, where I believe Pikmin didn't. No, Pikmin didn't. So that gives Pikmin a bit of a lead again, but it's definitely very, very close. These two racers are seconds apart at this point, and it really, DLDarklink really pulled back, and it really is anyone's game again.
Yeah, DLDarklink had to heal back after the flare, so that's a bit more time lost at this segment.
But Pikmin got the Fire Lizards on Merilith floor, which could waste time. Generally, 1 or 2 encounters is nice on Merilith floor, and you very rarely, if ever, see ambushes here.
Yeah, and there's very, very few bad stuff as well. There is the 1 in 64 Red Dragon, which can troll a bit because it has some pretty powerful moves. But I believe I've only seen it twice in my own runs, so they are very, very uncommon.
This is DLDarklink ran into the Fire Gigas. Unlike the Ice ones, the Fire ones can be ran away from.
Okay, now it's time for Kraken. Kraken has a ton of unwinnable encounters, so depending on how that goes, Kraken's gonna either make or break it until Chaos. Oof, the ambush, that's not good. That is not good. We want to see no water elementals, basically. So it looks like...
Or the Chief encounter is also a time waster.
Yeah.
I don't think you can encounter ghosts on this floor, but for the most part, the rest of the floor has the same encounters from Sunken Shrine.
Well, there is the Sahagan Prince encounter. It's a little bit different, actually, from how you see it in Sunken. It is still a very annoying encounter, but it has become runnable at this point.
I thought you could get the Sahagin Prince in Chief, the 9-pack.
No, at least I've never seen both of them in this war. I have seen the Sahagin Prince, but
I've seen the Sahagin Prince in Chief here, but it's very rare.
Pikmin pulls
might
ahead.
be the 164 or something, which is not unlikely.
With good RNG. I mean, the thing with FF1 is that there's definitely lots of skill associated with the handling of certain RNGs and handling risk, but I mean, at some point, it does just come down to getting bad RNG, especially at high levels like these. Like, for example, on this floor, Darklink just got more unearnable encounters, and there's not much he could have done about that. He handled them as best as he could. It's still, like... It's gonna come down to Chaos at this point. Like, if any of them dies to Chaos, they lose their race, basically. So honestly, like, I wouldn't save, just because of how close this is. They might not know how close this is, though, so... Otherwise, you should save disable for Chaos, because you control... At this point, like, having the load of safety save after Chaos is just gonna cost them the race. Oof, encounter after Tiamat. It's pretty bad.
Yeah, it probably not only just depends on whether Chaos would kill, but I think if one of them were to get magic pattern and the other were to get physical pattern,
it's definitely within that realm.
You can lose up to 1.5 minutes on Chaos with no death. For example, my current PB and the current world record are dead even after Tiamat 2. We both got an encounter after Tiamat 2, and the world record's Chaos is 1 minute faster than mine, which basically like that Chaos fight in my PB cost me the world record.
Yeah, and another thing to note is I believe Darklink has got a little bit better, is a little bit more lucky in his health values on the ninja. Both of them are pretty low in terms of the Black Mage, but I think Darklink might be able to go with just one Giant Tonic, where Pikmin will probably have to use 2. So that loses Darklink, or loses Pikmin a little bit of time and just makes that difference a little bit smaller. Both getting an encounter between Tiamat and Chaos, though.
The 6 arrow elemental encounter that Darklink got is incredibly annoying. So depending on what you did in Sunken, this is the last menu of the game. What you want to do here is you unequip or decide to just equip clothes on the White Mage. What this does is it ensures that the White Mage gets last in the turn order. So the rest of your characters will get their moves off, Chaos will get his move off, and then after Chaos's move goes off, the White Wizard will go last and heal. This makes Chaos relatively safe for the most part.
So very clutch hit on Pikmin's end there. The Thief living with 1 HP left. That was quite lucky for Pikmin that the Thief didn't die. Also, I think I'm going to get ready for my own race right now. So enjoy the final bit, and I'll get my own run set up for the winners semifinals.
The thing that you want to see the least in the Chaos fight is your ninja going down, because your ninja is your highest source of damage per second.
Well, I mean, if your White Mage goes down...
Well, I guess, yeah, but that's incredibly rare that your White Mage goes down.
You need to be crit.
Chaos needs to crit your White Mage with a physical attack, and that's
very
rare to happen.
It's happened.
Oh, it's happened. It's just very, very rare. What is more common is that your ninja dies because he doesn't have enough HP to survive the AoE attacks, and that is a huge time waster because the ninja is your main source of damage.
Pikmin with his ninja dead. I think at this point he just needs to damage without the ninja and not bother with it because he's close enough to death. One thing you don't want him to do is not kill Chaos fast enough and then have him. Yeah. Oof. This is
interesting to know. I think it was in Pikmin's last race that we were discussing this, is Kuraja heals for 9999 on your own characters, which is kind of dumb because your characters can't get that much HP, and the reason for that is because Chaos has it and can heal for 9999 HP, and that's why it does over your your HP cap when you use it is because the game is programmed to let Chaos use it and heal for 10,000.
And Pikmin with the win.
G.
This is still one of the closest races, I think.
Oh, you stopped the wrong timer.
Oh yeah.
Because Darklink's timer went down midway through the run, I would look at the SRL time.
Yeah, the final times are 1:33.19 for Pikmin and 1:33.50 for Darklink, so still incredibly close. Seems I can't get this one to split. Nice.
Do you have different hotkeys for both?
Yeah. Oh well. Like even doing it with the mouse, it doesn't go well. So now.
I'm like straight up shaking right now.
Hey, GG Pikmin. That was really close.
Oh my gosh, I'm shaking.
You had I don't know if you saw, but you had a massive lead until Chaos's Shrine.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I didn't have the stream open, but I figured that I was ahead for most of the run because I swear this game was going to troll me, and I guess it did with Chaos Shrine. Jeez, that was so close.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Oh my gosh.
So what were your thoughts going into Lich at PB
To
pace? Yeah, because you're on PB pace, right? Going into Lich, or something close to that.
Which one or Lich 2?
Lich 1. You weren't. Wait, no, wait. Lich 1 you were a bit behind, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I
Lich
was
PB pace.
for my splits. I was looking at average segments. So and that whenever I switch over to Lich, I saw I was like almost a minute behind at Lich, and I was like, okay, because I thought it was a decent split. And then when I get to Merilith, I'm like a minute ahead, and I'm like, this game.
I mean, it was definitely a lot tighter. Like you managed to keep a lead after after Lich for quite a while. There was a bit of back and forth, but you still managed to stay ahead. And then at the end there, it's just really came down to luck. And your
my
ninja got
goodness.
killed as well. That was still clutch.
Edge is a champion for surviving that first turn.
So one of the questions I have for you is, well, it's a two-part question really. It's about the Tiamat fight. You chose to safety save rather than heal on Tiamat, and it backfired. Do you have what compelled you to choose to save instead of healing?
I save before 5th floor in case Warmech decides to show up and be a little rude. And
Yeah.
I figured going into the fight that Tiamat would Thunderbolt and kill Edge and Zez, which I was kind of okay with, though I'm really surprised that Adam went down as well.
And the second part is what happened with the teleport down. What we assumed watching it was that your cursor, or you thought your cursor was on heal on the white mage, and it was on the black mage instead.
That
when
is
you teleported.
exactly
Is that
what happened. I saw the teleport animation, like, oh shoot, that's no.
Yeah, I've actually done that myself before. It's not uncommon if your cursor is if you think your cursor's in a different spot than it is.
Yep, you gotta remember as much as the game does where it is. And then I had to go back and forth and be like, okay, is it faster to just teleport all the way out, or is it just faster to go to 5th floor again? And obviously the decision is to go through 5th floor again.
So the two of you, gave us quite a heart race towards the end, because you had a significant lead going into Chaos' Shrine. I'm not sure if you saw, but you both went into Lich 2 at exactly the same time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
The difference maker on your side was that Darklink got Flare and you didn't.
Yeah,
So,
that might
you had a
have
slight lead.
cost the race, because Flare is definitely a good 10 seconds on the fight itself, then he had to heal. So, who knows what would have happened.
Yeah, Lich is an MVP for not flaring.
I'd say he flares too often. That's the only thing.
I think it's 75%, so
Yeah, it's quite big actually.
So what are your thoughts getting into the finals?
So before the race, I was going. So I name all my characters, which is a very uncommon thing. Many people don't really do it. But, you know, you can, so why not? So I was going back and forth on what to name my white mage, because a couple of runs ago, when I had named her Rose, she didn't one-shot the vampire, which is supposed to be super easy. So I quote-unquote fired her. I rehired her so many times during this race.
Yeah, this game
She was so clutch.
has quite the history of superstitions associated with it, that's for sure.
What does?
This game has tons of superstitions associated with it,
gosh.
like if I walk in this portion of the map, I'm gonna get encounters. If I move the boat diagonally, I'm not gonna get encounters. Dumb stuff like that.
Black mage runs more than thief.
And
She is.
so Darklink, if you're around, you lost by a very, very slight margin, and a lot of your races have been relatively close. What do you think cost you this one?
Couple of ambushes, couple of weird encounters, and I think all my damage rolls, especially at the end of the game, were a bit low. Some fights took longer than expected.
I think it was
How'd
your
you do
Kraken
on
for
Astos?
Sorry?
How'd you do on Astos?
Astos, let me think, the thief got one attack off before he got killed, so that was good.
Oh, so he cast death?
Yep.
I didn't actually notice that your thief got his attack off before death. That's actually quite helpful.
Yeah, that
He
was
hasn't
kind of lucky.
Successfully cast death on me in so long. It's gonna happen.
So you've had a good run in the tournament up to this point, Darklink.
Yep.
How did you enjoy it so far?
Oh, it was amazing. I've had the most weird runs, in my opinion, for myself. I've had some runs that were stupid slow, but thankfully mostly sorry for the other runners that they made some mistakes or died in progress. And I really lucked out against Forsyth a couple of times.
And now that the tournament is over for you, do you plan to continue running the game at any point?
I'll look into buying a different PSP or a PSTV so I can do runs on console. Then
Nice.
I'll continue running the game.
What's your goal time? How far do you think you can push your PB down?
At least sub 130.
Sub 130? That's a pretty good goal.
Yep. And maybe if I get lucky, I'll go for world record at some point. But that will take some time, I guess.
Yeah, it's doable. I think the world record is still up for debate as far as if it's beatable. I'm pretty sure that it can be beaten just with a little bit of luck. So I wish you the best of luck in going for it.
Thanks, man.
Look, man, we need the sub 127. It's so close.
Someone's gonna get it eventually.
It's just a matter of time. I think
You
the
just
game
gotta-
can be pushed down to 122 with really, really good RNG. So getting sub 127 is definitely in the realm of possibilities.
You just got to heal before Lich 2 so you don't throw away the 127, right?
You need to not die to white dragons. Chaos is Shrine. That's what you have to do.
That's hard.
I know. I know. I think the best pace I've ever had was a 125 pace going into Chaos Shrine, and then I got ambushed by 4 white dragons and died. There was absolutely nothing I could do about it.
Ouch. So congrats, man.
Thanks. That was-
Congratulations to both of you for making it this far. That's a lot of RNG had to go your way in order to make it all the way to the semifinals. So congratulations to both of you.
Thanks.
Thank you. I'm actually like still shaking. It was so close.
Congratulations
It made
to
for
both
a
of you.
nice- It made
Once
for a
again.
really, really nice ending.
You had a good run, Darklink. That's for sure.
It was fun.
Yep, goes to show, even if you have a massive lead, it all comes down to the end.
Okay, well, it looks like... Thanks for your interview, guys. Thanks for stopping by. It looks like we're about ready to start the next race.